The great hall of Concord Station stretched wider than any cathedral on Earth. Light spilled down from transparent ceilings, showing the stars beyond, while banners of 100 worlds hung along the curved walls. Representatives from the galaxy's most powerful empires filled the room with noise, voices of every tone, language, and rhythm echoing against the metal chamber. Some spoke in booming roars, others in whispers, yet all of them carried the same weight: tension. Humanity's delegation sat quietly near the center. Their table was small compared to the grand thrones of the older civilizations. The human ambassador, Elena Ruiz, folded her hands on the table, listening. Around her were aides and translators keeping records of every word. To the other species, the humans seemed calm, almost passive. Many had already decided what role humanity played here. Observers, not leaders. The galaxy had known war for centuries. Two great powers, the Krath Dominion and the Veari Union, had clashed over disputed star systems for generations. Entire colonies had been lost in their endless fights, and neutral worlds feared being dragged into the next wave of destruction. The Concord had called this peace conference as a final attempt to stop another war before it began. When humanity was invited, many questioned the decision. Earth was still considered a young race in the galactic stage, barely 200 years into faster-than-light travel. The Krath called them newborns of the void. The Veari dismissed them as children of blue water. To the galaxy, humans were clever traders, fair diplomats, but nothing more. Ambassador Ruiz, however, understood her role. She knew humanity's place was not only to speak, but to listen, and to wait for the right moment. She reminded her team quietly before the talks began. Let them underestimate us. It costs us nothing. The opening speeches filled the first hours. Leaders from the Krath Dominion demanded reparations for lost warships, while the Veari Union insisted on sovereignty over mineral-rich planets. Their voices clashed like blades. Other delegates tried to calm them, but the words circled endlessly. Nothing changed. Humanity's table remained still, their records filling with notes, their faces calm. Yet behind their silence there was thought. Humanity had not come to the Concord without preparation. For decades, Earth's governments had studied galactic politics carefully. They saw the cycle of alliances, betrayals, and wars. They learned that peace, while spoken of often, was rarely kept. Quietly, they had prepared for the day when words alone might not be enough. Ruiz thought of the fleet even now, waiting far beyond Concord Station. Crews trained and ready, ships maintained with precision. None of the other delegates knew the size of it, nor the discipline behind it. To reveal it now would be reckless, but to have it hidden was safety. Humanity did not threaten. Humanity waited. As the day stretched on, the arguments grew sharper. The Krath delegate pounded the table with a clawed hand, demanding territory. The Veari envoy leaned forward, their silver crest shaking with fury, declaring that they would never bow to old enemies. Every word pushed the talks closer to collapse. Smaller civilizations sat silently, fearful of choosing a side. The hall grew heavy with the sense that war was no longer a question of if, but when. Through it all, Ruiz remained steady. Her voice entered only once, soft yet firm. We are here because we all fear the same thing: losing what we love to endless war. Humanity asks that every side step back, before none of us have a future left to protect. The words were polite, even hopeful, but they were met with little more than dismissive waves. Some envoys even laughed, calling it the optimism of children. Ruiz did not react. She only noted their faces, their words, and their pride. By the end of the first day, the peace conference had produced nothing. Delegates left the hall with sharp words and colder hearts. Rumors spread quickly that fleets were already preparing to move, that old grudges would soon burn again. Concord Station's walls seemed smaller now, trapped between anger and distrust. Yet in the silence of the human quarters, Ambassador Ruiz looked at her aides and spoke with quiet certainty. They think we are weak. Let them believe it. For now, her words carried both patience and resolve. For humanity was not only here to watch history unfold, humanity was ready if needed to shape it. And as the stars beyond the transparent ceilings shone cold and eternal, the galaxy had no idea that among them waited a fleet, silent, disciplined, and prepared for the moment when peace might fail. The first cracks in the talks had appeared, but the story of humanity in the galaxy was only beginning. The skies above Concord Station had always been neutral. No warships were allowed to enter orbit, no fleets permitted to gather. Yet as the peace talks collapsed, that rule began to crumble. On the third day, the station's sensors picked up heavy movement across nearby sectors. Dominion fleets were shifting into formation, their ships like dark blades gliding through space. The Veari armadas moved to counter, sleek silver vessels forming tight walls of firepower. Civilizations across the galaxy held their breath as they watched the preparations for war. Inside the Great Hall, the delegates had grown quiet. The shouting of the day before had left behind only cold silence. Everyone knew that the first shots might come at any moment. Ambassador Elena Ruiz sat at her table, her face unreadable. Around her, aides whispered reports of fleets converging near the neutral zone. She listened carefully, her hand resting on the small communicator linked directly to the unseen commanders of Earth's forces. She had hoped it would not come to this, but the galaxy had chosen its path. Suddenly, alarms echoed through Concord Station. The presiding officer announced in a strained voice, "Multiple fleets detected on approach vectors. The Dominion and Union forces are moving into battle positions. Neutral orbit is no longer safe." Panic spread among the delegates. Some demanded evacuation. Others tried to contact their home governments. The station trembled slightly as security systems locked down. Fear filled the air like smoke. And then something unexpected happened. New signatures appeared on the long-range scans, unfamiliar formations moving with precision. They were not Dominion ships, nor Veari, nor any known minor power. Dozens of vessels entered the sector, their drives glowing steady and bright. At first, the station's sensors struggled to identify them. But then the truth became clear. They were human ships. The chamber fell into stunned silence as the news was confirmed. Human vessels entering orbit, at least 5 capital ships, supported by cruisers and escorts. Formation is tight, disciplined. They are positioning between the Dominion and Union lines. Delegates rose to their feet, some in disbelief, others in shock. For years, the galaxy had assumed humanity's fleet was small, scattered, and inexperienced. Yet now, before their eyes, an organized armada appeared. From the observation decks, the view was striking. Human ships were not the largest nor the most advanced-looking, but they moved with a purpose that few had seen. Their hulls gleamed with markings of Earth and her colonies, and their formations were clean, every vessel holding exact position. They did not drift nervously. They did not scatter. They formed a wall of steel and light. In the Dominion command chamber, the Krath delegate snarled, demanding an explanation. "This is a trick. The humans cannot field such strength. These ships must belong to someone else." But the evidence was undeniable. Transponders confirmed it. These were Earth's vessels, under Earth's command. The Veari envoy narrowed their eyes, unsettled. How long have they been building this?" Back in the hall, Ambassador Ruiz finally rose to speak. Her voice was calm, but now there was steel behind it. "You called us children. You said we were too young to matter, but humanity does not arrive unprepared. We warned you. We will not stand aside while you burn the stars. And now you see we brought more than words." Her statement rippled through the chamber. Some smaller civilizations began whispering among themselves. If humanity had built a fleet in secret, what else might they have prepared? Above, in orbit, the fleets of the Dominion and the Union now faced an impossible choice. To strike at each other, they would first have to go through the human wall. The Dominion commander sent sharp signals demanding that the humans step aside. The Union followed with their own ultimatum. The human fleet did not move. Instead, a single broadcast came across all channels. It was the voice of Admiral Keon Hayes, commander of Earth's forces. His tone was steady, without fear. "To all fleets in this sector, humanity stands for peace. We will fire only if attacked, but if you choose war, you will pass through us first." Those words spread across the galaxy within hours. Every civilization with a listening post repeated them. A race once dismissed as insignificant had just placed itself between giants, daring them to test its resolve. Inside the Great Hall, the Krath delegates' eyes burned with anger. The Veari envoy clenched their jaws silent. For the first time, neither empire rushed forward. Both hesitated, and in that hesitation a new truth became clear to everyone watching. Humanity was not weak. Humanity had built, prepared, and endured, waiting for the moment to stand. The galaxy had underestimated Earth, and now, before all eyes, the humans showed their steel. The stars outside Concord Station glittered with cold fire, reflecting off the armored hulls of human ships. The line had been drawn, and it was humanity that drew it. The human fleet hovered in orbit like a silent guardian, their formations precise, their weapons ready but untouched. Below, Concord Station trembled as panic spread among the delegates. Outside the observation decks, the view of hundreds of alien ships gathering into battle formations was frightening. Yet humanity did not flinch. Ambassador Elena Ruiz watched the stars through the transparent ceilings, her calm presence in sharp contrast to the rising tension. "Hold your positions," she said softly to her aides. "Let them see who stands between them and war." The Krath Dominion's flagship moved forward, engines glowing red as it tested the limits of the neutral zone. The Dominion commander sent a sharp message. "Human fleet, stand aside or be destroyed. You cannot stop the Dominion. Step aside and your race may live." Admiral Keon Hayes' reply came instantly, calm and unwavering. "We will not step aside. Peace is still possible, but if you strike first, you will find humanity ready." The Veyari Union's forces mirrored the Dominion, their silver hulls shining as they closed ranks. Both empires now faced the same human wall, and both understood for the first time that this young race had built more than words or promises. They had built power. In the Great Hall, delegates watched in disbelief. Some whispered among themselves, realizing that the humans were no longer a minor power but a force capable of shaping galactic events. The smaller civilizations, once fearful of war, now began to hope that humanity could be the shield that kept their world safe. Tensions reached a breaking point as a Krath destroyer advanced too close, testing human patience. Sensors tracked its approach. Within seconds, human ships aligned their weapons in perfect synchronization. The energy beams hummed faintly, illuminating the void with quiet menace. No shot was fired, but the intent was clear. Attack, and the destroyer would not survive. The Dominion commander paused, doubt flickering across his face. He glanced at the Union ships. The Veyari commander hesitated too, seeing the disciplined readiness of the human fleet. Neither side had expected this. They had assumed humanity could be ignored, laughed at, or easily moved aside. Now the galaxy's youngest power had become an immovable line between war and destruction. Ambassador Ruiz rose and addressed the assembly through the station's communication channels. "You have chosen anger over reason, but humanity stands not to fight unless forced. We ask again, step back from the brink. There is still time to avoid needless bloodshed." The words carried authority, though she spoke softly. Silence followed. Not one voice dared interrupt. Even the Dominion and Union delegates exchanged uneasy looks, their confidence shaken. Minutes passed like hours. The standoff continued, the silence between fleets heavy with tension. Humans and aliens alike held their breaths. Every ship was prepared, every pilot ready, every weapon aimed, but none fired. It was a test of will. Then, unexpectedly, the Veyari envoy whispered to their commander, "Perhaps we underestimated them. We must reconsider." The Krath Dominion was slower, pride holding them back. Yet even they could not ignore the simple fact. Every approach toward war would meet the human fleet. Their pride faced reality. These humans, dismissed for so long, had courage and preparation in equal measure. Admiral Hayes spoke to his fleet, voice calm over the channels. "Stand firm. We are not here to conquer, only to protect. Let them test their patience, not ours. Humanity does not fear the galaxy when we stand together." The human crews followed orders flawlessly. Every fighter and cruiser moved with perfect timing. Even the youngest pilots felt the weight of history on their shoulders. Humanity's reputation, for centuries underestimated, now rested on their ability to hold this line. Finally, after hours of tense standoff, the Krath and Veyari commanders communicated directly. They had seen the discipline, the coordination, and the courage of a race they had called weak. Slowly, word spread through the fleets. The humans would not yield. Neither empire wanted the first strike. Both hesitated, fear of loss now balanced against old grudges. The standoff ended without a shot. Slowly, the Krath ships withdrew to a nearby neutral sector, their pride stung but their fleets intact. The Veyari followed suit, retreating just enough to maintain honor without confrontation. Humanity's fleet remained in position, silent, ready, and unbroken. Back in Concord Station, delegates stood quietly, the weight of what had happened settling upon them. Ambassador Ruiz returned to her seat, her face calm, her voice steady. Let this be remembered. Strength is not only in size or age, but in preparation, courage, and the will to protect life. Humanity has chosen to stand for peace. We will not be ignored. The galaxy, for the first time, realized that humans were not simply a young race with ambition. They were guardians of their own future, capable of shaping the fate of the stars. And somewhere beyond Concord Station, humanity's fleet remained vigilant, a quiet promise in the darkness of space. Peace was possible, but never at the cost of courage and resolve. The line had been drawn. The galaxy had learned in the hardest way possible that humanity would not back down. The standoff was over, but the story of humans in the stars was only beginning. The tension in the galaxy slowly began to ease. The fleets of the Krath Dominion and the Veari Union held their positions, no longer daring to push forward. News of the human fleet's discipline, precision, and courage spread through every system, and whispers of admiration replaced the murmurs of fear. Humanity, once dismissed as insignificant, had become a force that could not be ignored. Inside Concord Station, Ambassador Elena Ruiz walked through the hallways, nodding quietly to delegates from smaller civilizations. Many of them approached her now, offering words of thanks or simply bowing in respect. They had seen the humans act with courage, not arrogance, and it had preserved countless lives. In a private chamber, Ruiz and Admiral Keon Hayes debriefed their team. The fleet remained in orbit, fully operational and ready, but the immediate threat had passed. They respected the line we drew, Hayes said, rubbing his temple. But more importantly, they learned it exists, Ruiz nodded. It is not fear we sought, she said. It is understanding. If the galaxy believes humanity can be counted among its protectors, then perhaps the next generations will choose cooperation over destruction. Outside the station, fleets gradually withdrew. The Krath and Veari commanders communicated quietly, coordinating their retreats without further confrontation. Though tension lingered, a fragile peace had been restored. The galaxy's major powers had learned something crucial. Humans were not simply observers of the stars. They were guardians, builders, and strategists capable of altering the balance of power. The observation decks of Concord Station became crowded with delegates watching the human fleet. Even the smallest craft, the nimble fighters that had darted between the larger ships during maneuvers, were admired for their speed and coordination. Every motion, every formation displayed discipline that many older civilizations had never achieved. Elena Ruiz addressed the delegates one final time before the conference officially adjourned. The galaxy is vast and the stars can be cruel, but we do not have to meet them with war. Humanity has come to show that courage and preparation can preserve life. The choice now is ours. Choose understanding, choose cooperation, and we can achieve peace. Some delegates hesitated, their pride wounded by the events of the past days. Others were inspired, realizing that the humans had acted not for conquest but for protection. Quietly, treaties were revised, boundaries respected, and discussions about future cooperation began. The collapse of the peace talks had seemed inevitable, but humans had turned it into a lesson for the galaxy. The story of humanity's fleet spread across star systems, carried by messengers, sensors, and broadcasts. Young species looked to Earth with hope, seeing a model of courage without cruelty. Older Empire, as though still proud and wary, could not deny the skill and resolve that humans had shown. The balance of power had shifted, not by aggression but by discipline, planning, and the courage to stand for what is right. In the human fleet, Admiral Hayes walked the bridge of his flagship, observing his crews. Each member had performed flawlessly, following orders with precision, understanding the weight of their mission. He allowed himself a small smile. They learned who we are, he said quietly, and now the galaxy will think twice before underestimating us again. Back on Earth, celebrations were muted but proud. Humanity had not conquered or destroyed. It had preserved life and forced the galaxy to recognize their place. Scientists, engineers, and pilots all received recognition, not for war but for preparation, courage, and foresight. Children in classrooms looked up at the stars, imagining the fleets that protected the galaxy with discipline and honor. Even the Krath and Veari acknowledged, in private communications, that humans had earned their respect. Though ancient grudges remained, the war that seemed inevitable had been prevented. For the first time in decades, the galaxy understood that diplomacy backed by courage could succeed where words alone often failed. As Concord Station settled into quiet, Ambassador Ruiz returned to her quarters. She looked out at the stars beyond, calm and reflective. This is only the beginning, she thought. Humanity will face challenges, yes, but now we are seen. Now we are heard. And one day perhaps the galaxy will not only respect us but learn from us. The human fleet remained in orbit for a while longer, a silent guardian watching over the neutral zone. Then slowly it began to disperse, returning to Earth and her colonies. The stars had been tested, the galaxy had learned, and humanity had proven that courage, preparation, and resolve could shape the future without firing a single shot. And so, peace, fragile but real, returned to the galaxy. The message was clear. Underestimate humanity and you do so at your own risk. Stand against them, and you meet discipline and courage beyond expectation. But choose cooperation, and the galaxy could thrive together. For the first time, the galaxy understood the truth. Humanity was not just another race among the stars. Humanity was a force of hope, strength, and unwavering resolve. The story of the fleet, of courage, and of standing firm would be remembered for generations. The galaxy had learned that words, when backed by preparation and courage, could change the course of history, and humanity, once underestimated, had secured its place among the stars. The second day of the Concord Conference began with heavy silence. The Grand Hall felt colder, the banners above less bright. Delegates filed in with guarded expressions, their eyes sharp with suspicion. Rumors had spread during the night that both the Krath Dominion and the Veyari Union had already moved fleets closer to the neutral zones. Everyone in the chamber sensed the danger. The conference was failing. Ambassador Elena Ruiz entered with steady steps. She had not slept much, but her mind was clear. She understood that this day would decide whether peace survived or collapsed. Her aides walked behind her, carrying reports and notes, their faces pale from long hours of watching and listening. The Krath delegate began first. His voice thundered across the hall, accusing the Veyari of lying during the talks. He demanded immediate concessions, entire star systems handed over to the Dominion. His clawed hand struck the table with such force that sparks flew from the surface. The Veyari envoy rose in anger, silver crest trembling, declaring that the Dominion would never claim what did not belong to them. The argument quickly became a storm. Voices clashed, translators struggled to keep up, and smaller civilizations sat frozen, unwilling to take sides. The Concord's presiding officer, an ancient being from the serene coral species, called for calm again and again, but his voice was drowned out. Ruiz leaned slightly forward at her table, watching. Her aides whispered about the escalating tension, but she raised a hand to silence them. It was not time for panic. It was time to see how far the empires were willing to go. The breaking point came when the Krath delegate shouted, "If the Veyari will not yield, then the Dominion will take what is owed by force." His words echoed like a weapon fired. The Veyari envoy answered instantly, "Then let the stars burn, for we will never kneel." The hall erupted into chaos. Delegates shouted, some in anger, some in fear. A few rushed to the exits, already preparing to contact their governments. The Concord officer struck the gavel again and again, but the noise drowned everything. It was no longer a debate. It was the collapse of peace. Amid the uproar, Ambassador Ruiz stood. She did not raise her voice at first, but the calmness of her tone carried strangely through the chamber. So this is how it ends. Not with understanding, not with compromise, but with the same anger that has consumed generations. The hall quieted slightly, surprised that the human had spoken. Ruiz continued, her eyes moving across the assembly. Humanity came here in hope. We believed that words might hold back the darkness of war, but if you choose war instead, then you must understand this. Humanity will not stand aside. The silence that followed was deep. Delegates blinked in confusion, some exchanging looks of disbelief. Then laughter broke out from a corner. A representative from a smaller empire scoffed. Humanity? Stand against the Dominion and the Union? You are children. Your fleets are traitors, not warriors. The Krath delegate snarled in agreement. Do not pretend to matter here, human. Your world is still young. Do not threaten giants with a wooden spear. Ruiz did not flinch. She placed her hands firmly on the table and spoke with the same calm strength. We do not threaten. We promise. Humanity has suffered wars of our own. We know what destruction looks like. If you set the galaxy on fire, then you will not fight each other alone. You will face us as well. Her words struck like an unseen weight. Some delegates whispered nervously, uncertain whether to believe her. Others dismissed her as reckless. But none could ignore her now. Humanity, once quiet in the corner, had declared itself. After the session ended in disorder, rumors spread through Concord Station faster than light. Some called the humans brave, others foolish. A few asked themselves whether humanity might be hiding more strength than they showed, but most simply assumed the young race had spoken too boldly. In the private chambers of the Dominion, Krath officers laughed at the thought of humans standing in their way. The Vayari leaders dismissed it as a desperate plea for relevance. Neither side imagined that Earth could be a true obstacle. Yet in the human quarters, Ruiz's aides looked to her with wide eyes. "Do we reveal more?" one asked softly. Ruiz shook her head. "Not yet. Let them doubt. Let them laugh. The time will come when they see what stands behind our words." Beyond Concord Station, far in the quiet of deep space, the human fleet waited. Ships moved in disciplined patterns, crews at stations, engines humming with restrained power. Orders had been given long before the conference began. Hold position, stay silent, and prepare for the moment humanity would be called upon. And as the empires prepared their fleets for war, believing humanity to be only bold talkers, they did not realize the truth. A new force stood ready in the galaxy, one that would not bow, one that would not break. The peace talks had collapsed, but the story was not finished. The galaxy was about to learn what humanity had brought with them to the stars.